Mi365 Podcasts with me, Pete Cohen. Hey everyone, before we start the podcast today, feel free to head over to mi365.me. That's mi365.me and find out for yourself how you can take advantage of 365 days of free life coaching with me to take you and your life to a whole new level. Hey, and welcome to another Mi365 podcast. My guest today is the amazing Tim Dingle. Now, if you don't know who Tim Dingle is, you will most certainly know after listening to this podcast. This is a gentleman who has an unbelievable story to tell. A stand-up comic, a former head teacher, an entrepreneur, and someone who is trying to help as many people as he can. His story is amazing. So sit back and enjoy this amazing interview. I'm absolutely delighted. My guest today, Tim Dingle. Tim, how are you, my friend?
I'm absolutely amazing. Thanks for asking. And yourself? Are you well?
I am amazing. But when we met for the first time, before we get into this, that word, amazing. Tell us what that actual word means.
Two things. One is the etymology, the history of the word. It comes from the word escaping from a maze. Literally, 1562, probably Hampton Court, we don't know, but it was used to mean surprise that people have escaped from the maze. So amazed means, or amazing means you've escaped from a maze.
So when you use the word, what does that mean to you?
For me and for everybody, it has a different meaning. It could mean the fact that you feel fantastic. It could mean you are getting more done than you ever thought possible. It could mean you're being highly successful. But for every person, it has a nuance, a different meaning, a different level of thought behind it. But I have my own views about how to be amazing every day.
Well, that would be great to talk about. So Mi365 podcast is all about talking to people about their stories, because I believe when you hear someone's story, you can learn something from them, and maybe you could use that to make the story of your life moving forward even better than what it is. We met not long ago, and I must admit, there were just some of the things you said that just literally just blew me away. I was like, excuse me? And hearing how a deputy headmaster, someone who's worked in education for years, is now a stand-up comic, has written 27 books, is that correct?
Well,
and is dyslexic.
Yeah, so you probably have to start at the beginning, because I was a head teacher. I was a deputy head as well, but I was a head teacher. I've written 27 books, Ghost written 4 books, and I only started writing books about 4 years ago. When I became a head teacher, I was interested in improving the lot of all the children in the school, so I had the head of careers test all the children for dyslexia. And she kindly said, Tim, you're very young, you're 38 years old, you must do the dyslexia test. So I did it. And at the end she said, ha ha, you were mucking around. And I said, no, I wasn't. She said, well, you're off the scale dyslexic. And I said, that's very odd. And we looked at it, and indeed I am. And I've compensated all my life from being somebody that really finds it very hard with words, apart from speaking, full stop, new paragraph, which is now what I do into a computer, to write coherent sentences, and they always used to jump around. So I overcompensated by working harder, thinking more, learning a style where I memorised all the words photographically as a picture. So I'm not very good at spelling, but I can spell every word, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And as a result of all that, the compulsion to write has been massive, because one of my things is that if you have an untold story, it just sort of burns a hole in you. So actually the process of writing is very therapeutic and very, very positive, and I'd encourage everybody to write their story.
So when you tell about the untold story, what is it that you're doing now, and where's your kind of passion in on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that the passion lies in being in a space where I can be authentic, I can be real, and I can be myself. Having last summer spent the whole of August in Edinburgh doing 33 stand-up shows of an hour each over 22 days in a red dress, and making people laugh to a sort of sold-out audience. It was quite an experience to be able to say, look at me, take me for what I am. And their decisions on what they want to think I am are absolutely okay. I'm okay with that. There's a big thing I have about ask what it's true of in life, and if somebody sees me in a red dress, whether it was on stage, and back in London I did lots of shows in it, or they see me in a newspaper in a red dress, I want them to ask the question, why? Because although it can be a very tough question sometimes to answer, what they think is true may not be true at all.
So is that one of the things that motivates you? You want everyday people to ask the question, why?
I think so. I think it's a powerful question. It can be quite aggressive. If I say, I love a particular flavour of food, and you say, why? It's quite an aggressive thing.
Yeah.
A better question might be asked, and I'm a big fan of asking better questions, is to ask, what is your emotional attachment to that, and to describe that to you. For me, getting people to wake up and be curious, to explore, to play, to create novelty are the themes that run through everything I do.
Well, it was interesting because we just arrived here, and my friend Jamie's a cameraman who I've known since I was a very young boy. Within a few moments, you asked him the question. What was the question you asked him?
I think I said, what does excite you on a global scale? And he replied, it's a local scale. But I think one of the most tedious questions ever to be asked when you meet somebody is, what do you do?
Yeah.
And people say, I'm an accountant and I fall asleep.
Yeah.
What I'm much more interested in asking in terms of a better question is, what's exciting you? What's going to make you get up in the morning? What makes you you? And that's a great question. I think people are shorthanding and making it too easy, and they're trying to simplify their lives by saying, what do you do? Here's a business card, move on. And I don't really care about that. I care about what keeps you going in the darkest moments, what makes you the person you are, and that's much more interesting.
Well, you've definitely already said so many things that I want to explore. So one is neuroplasticity, which and also the fact that that I was just diagnosed with severe dyslexia as well, whatever that means, severe. I want to talk to you about passion and discipline, which are two words that when we spoke last time, it really kind of resonated. But I just want to, how did you go from education, and why did you get into education?
Okay, it's quite a long story, but the story was I got into education because I smashed my guitar up when I was 20 on stage and told every member of the band there's no money in comedy or music, and they've all gone on to be multimillionaires in comedy and music. And I went to do teaching, and I found I was really quite good at it.
So someone basically told you that there's no money in music?
No, I told them. I told the rest of the band.
Oh, you told them. So why did you tell them? So did you like it? Did you like music and drama? And
I think there was a joy in it on one level. And the exploration of new things, but I wasn't ready for it. I'd lived a very odd life in that I'd been brought up in Cambridge among high academics. My father was a master at Cambridge College. I hung around with people whose parents were all Nobel Prize winners. I experimented on dead bodies when I was 13. I had my first...
Why? How come?
Because my father...
Because you could.
Because I could, and it didn't seem to be... the restrictions that, quite rightly there are now on doing that sort of stuff. But I published my first scientific paper in a peer-reviewed journal, the Biochemical Journal, when I was 13.
How did that come about? So
I was going to the laboratory when I was 9 and 10 and doing experiments and finding new stuff out, and I was driven and curious. I have a curious thing in my body. I'm driven to find out more. And for me, it's all about curiosity.
Where did you think that drive came from? Because that's what I would love more. I mean, when you're talking to me, I do have a lot of hair. I'll just hit the cameraman. I do have a lot of hair on my back, and all of those hairs just stood up when you're talking about these things. Because I'm thinking, are more people capable of having that level of curiosity? I don't mean opening up dead bodies, playing with dead bodies, but
absolutely.
I'm fascinated by that.
I think there is I'm very lucky that I have the genetic disposition to be curious, and it wasn't stifled out of me, even though school tried to.
So genetic, what do you mean? It's handed down through your father? You think?
Yeah, there's a particular gene that allows us to tolerate more risk.
Yeah.
And some people have a double version of it, some people have the recessive version, and some people have a limit between them. And the toleration of risk and the excitement of being curious about new things is what I've always been driven by. So,
you've been tested for that gene?
No, but I know how to test it, and you can be tested for it.
Yeah. So is that something that other people either have or?
Yeah, you're born with a certain level of it, and it's to do with the presence of an enzyme that takes away a neurotransmitter. If you've got it, it takes away 10 times faster than you haven't got it.
But surely everyone has that curiosity gene to learn and explore, and
Absolutely.
it's just there within all of us. But it just seems like a lot of that gets lost.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think part of it is the education system, part our parents, part society we live in.
That says that you should do one thing or another, or you should be seen
there are
and not heard,
limits to what you do, and if you keep asking, how many of us have heard children say, why is the sky blue? And the explanation is forthcoming, and they say, but why, and they keep going, and we get, as parents, as people, annoyed by that curiosity. And I think we stop being curious as we grow up. For me, probably very much a happy accident. I was in a family and upbringing where curiosity was encouraged. So my father was research scientist, probably one of the best in the world, and he allowed me to find new things that other people hadn't.
So when you are trying to help people, which I know you do, you and I, we know there's a lot of work to do all over the world, and I'm sure someone will be listening to this and it will make a huge difference. But one of the key things for you is, let's get a little bit more curious about what we're capable of. And
absolutely, the barriers and limits that have been imposed on us are artificial. My great belief is that very few people actually are encouraged to dream, let alone make an intelligent plan to realise that dream. For me, that curiosity to see where it could go and what we could do is what gets me up in the morning, is the good stress in my life. This is going to be new. I never get nervous or suffer from nerves, and I can teach people to do that as well, how to reduce their stress and excitement when they go on a big stage and speak, or when they're trying to sort out what their view is on what they want to do in their lives. Because I think a lot of people are held back by some sort of belief structure that says, I can't.
Yeah.
And who says they can't?
Well, curiosity killed the cat, right?
No.
Where did that expression come from? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, it came from 1642. It came from a particular expression that has been mistranslated, that the curious were the ones that were to be killed, and somehow actually the cats that survived were the genetically programmed ones that could jump further back from the noise, from the investigation, so they would survive. So genetically, evolutionarily speaking, the cats we've got today are the ones that were curious and were able to jump faster and get out of the way. So
it's fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I've just often said the expression. So let's talk about guilt, because that's something else I've heard you talk about. In the English language, there's a lot of words that similar describe the word guilt. How many?
There are, certainly in the English language, there are phrases and associations to guilt that are huge in number. So at one stage I had a complete blackboard covered in all the words you could think of to do with guilt: weighed down, burdened with guilt, burnt up in guilt, in high stress with guilt, all the things you can associate with the word guilt. A lot of evidence is that guilt is associated with depression. And if you can get rid of those feelings and begin to forgive yourself, which has been part of my journey, I hate the word, but part of my life journey is to be able to forgive myself and start loving myself. That guilt seems to recede. We could spend all our time living in a world where we felt responsibility for others.
Yeah.
We can't. We've got to take responsibility for ourselves. We've got to make good decisions, because it's not the conditions that affect our destiny, it is basically our decisions. And if we can make better ones by asking better questions, by thinking more clearly, by making more intelligent plans, we can get to a point where we can do more.
So when you're helping people, what is it that if someone, because there'll be people listening to this who want to create a better life for themselves,
Sure.
Where should someone start?
The best way, I believe, to start is to start with the question, what is your purpose? What's your why?
Yeah.
A lot of the neuroscience about the inner part of the brain, the simplest part of the brain, called the truon brain or reptilian brain, which doesn't really have any language, is all about the why, and people buy your why, your purpose. They buy your passion. If you can explore by asking really great questions about what is your purpose, what's your why, whether it's in business or life, you create something that is absolutely amazing, which is people buy passion. I used to say when I was a head teacher and training young teachers, you don't need to talk loudly or shout. In fact, children will talk louder back if you do. because passion is instant. We get it. We know, all of us know from schools, that some teachers are passionate and care, and some don't. And the ones that are real, authentic and care, we understand. So the number one thing in business is passion, which goes back to finding what your why is, what your purpose is. And if you can find that, it makes life so easy.
So can people have more than one purpose? Or?
Of course. And they can change over a period of time. I think the essential purpose of why we're here and what we want to do is very interesting. And there's a lot of work being done and trying to work on, if you can shorten that down to 8 words or less, what would it look like? And for me, it's inspiring people to be amazing every day. So I can't make you amazing, but I could inspire you to do that. And the qualities of that require me to think very intelligently about what your needs are, what your requirements are, but also to ask really deep questions about what is your why, and why do you do what you do? And people tend to use the what and the how to describe it. I do this, that's why I don't ask what do you do for a living. I'd rather ask why you do it for a living, which is a better question, but it's a bit aggressive. And if you can find that, my goodness, it's a shortcut to
absolutely.
Getting
well,
everything
we
on.
spoke about the Think and Grow Rich, which is a book which has been read by obviously thousands of people,
millions.
And the first principle is obviously the power of purpose. So tell me, what happened? How did you get into education? Not how did you get into education? So
how did you get out of it? That's much more exciting.
How did you get out of it? So there you are. You're in a band. You smash up.
So we were cutting to that. So segue away to that. So I'm in a band, do a teacher training course, go into teaching. I was in teaching, and
what were you teaching?
I was teaching biology because I did neuroscience and physiology at university, and then a master's in that. And I found I was really good at transmitting information. So if you asked me to explain something, I had a quality that people got, and virtually, I think, child I've ever come across in teaching has said, you can explain stuff to us, you get it. So I've had to understand it myself before I can teach it. And that quality meant I became a head of department, and then a housemaster at 27. I did my MBA whilst I was still working and worked on body language and interviews, and then I became a deputy head. And after being a deputy head of the school for 7 years, but really top school, I got headhunted to be a head teacher. So that's my sequence of education. So I was in education 26 years.
And were you still doing stuff outside of education?
Absolutely.
Building, learning, creating?
So I had been in research all that time as well. I'm interested in the mind and the way it works in the brain, and I love putting my head in a MRI scanner and having a look at what's going on inside it and see what motivates me and what excites me by stuff. I've been involved with England Schools Rugby and became in charge of the 16 group with some of the internationals that are playing rugby today. I've been a yacht master and a dive master in the Royal Naval Reserve, and lots of other things, as well as my other passions about things like poetry and skiing and cricket and doing comedy. So I became a head, and for various reasons I was divorced at the same time. We had a daughter. It was lovely, and I was head of this top school, and I did this new thing in 1999. That seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? Called internet dating. Oh, now internet.
1999.
Yeah, it's. I mean, were you born? I'm trying to think.
I was 19. I was thinking of Space.
Good.
1999.
Well, one of my favourite programmes. But 1999 I was head the top school, and I was internet dating, and there was one website. There was no smartphones, there was no stuff you use like Tinder and Grindr. I think you probably use something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
very familiar with that.
I bet you are. And I used to use this.
I don't even know what it is, but it sounds terrible.
Sounds awful. Yes, and I'm suspecting it is. The website, I fully made up my profile. I put a photo of George Clooney up, which nobody seemed to mention actually, which I thought was flattering. And I lied about my age and most things, which is I'm not proud of. And I went out, I suppose, with about 50 women between the age of 25 and 60. There was only one really terrible incident where one was beautiful and blonde and very attractive, and I meant to meet her, and it was a bloke called Dave from Hull. And the sex was crap. No, it wasn't. It was lovely. No, that bit was untrue, but that's a joke I do just to raise the tension. And
stand-up comic, you see.
Yeah, see, that's what I did there. So I fell in love a couple of times, and I obviously picked probably the wrong person, who I have no bitterness to now, hatred, but fell apart. I clearly had hurt her emotional sense of well-being, by lying about who I was and my age and stuff like that. And I fell out with her and didn't speak to her for a large chunk of time. And then I got headhunted to go to in charge of the English schools in Buenos Aires, and flew over a couple of times to Argentina and got the job. And I resigned my job as head and packed up my things and said goodbye to my daughter, who was staying with my ex, and was flying out. And about 3 months beforehand, I got a call from this particular person who said, "You can't go. I love you and I'm going to destroy you." 2 words you never want to hear in the same sentence.
I love you
and I'm going to destroy you. So if you ever hear those 2 words,
I don't think I ever had, but anyway.
No, but don't work on it. It's not pleasant. And it turned out that she'd sold a story to a newspaper for £28,000, and I said, "What story?" And they'd hacked my phone amongst other things, which was, my letter was then read out at the Levenson inquiry. But it transpired it was a 2-page article on page 19 of the Daily Mail. There are other newspapers out there, but none as bad as they are. And of course it's true, it appears in the Daily Mail, and the major photo, the sort of half-page photo, was me in a red dress. Now, the implication, of course, it was I was either a cross-dresser or a homosexual, both of which, whether they're true or not, is irrelevant. But the red dress was my symbol for later in life to say, look, actually, don't define me by what you think I am, because you've no idea. And I was at a party, in fact, and I put on the red dress with 2 Dutch girls, and it said "top head in internet, sex and drugs," and you know, a large amount of it was made up. Some of it was true. Paragraph 3, he was a wonderful lover. Excellent.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Excellent, because otherwise it's too difficult to transcribe. But the rest of it, it was fairly hurtful, and it obviously hurt my mum, who was very upset because she reads the Daily Mail. And I had her crying on the phone for an hour, and in the end I said, cut through. I said, "Mum, what really is the problem here?" And she said, "You in a red dress, blue with your eye colours." And she genuinely said that. And the Argentinian schools rang up and said, "Well, you can't have the job." And I said, "Well, it's not true." And they investigated and they agreed with me, but it was out there, and I had to deal with it. And at first I lay in bed with depression for 4 days, or approximately 4 days, which doesn't sound very depressive, but I did go to the doctors with depression. And you do a 40-question test for depression, and I did it, and I got 17 out of 40, which apparently is a failure. I mean, it's the first test I've ever failed. And I said to the doctor, "I'm really cross now, I've failed that. How do I get better at this?" And she didn't find that funny. So I went back to bed, and all these people came around who know me, who know I'm not that sort of person. I don't do the drugs, drink thing, and I'm not that sort of person. And they rallied around and sort of said, "Get out of bed, you're better than this." And I think it was my brother who sent me over to Harvard Law School to learn mediation and how to solve conflict. And I loved it. And I also learned a whole new set of skills about how to listen and alter the way I thought and ask better questions.
Wow.
And I moved in some circles with the guys at Princeton, the guys at Harvard, and I learned how to think in a different way and brought it back and started to train people to do that.
Wow, so let's talk about inner conflict, because how did you deal with the inner conflict that you must have had?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So at first there is this guilt, absolute guilt, there's shame. Everybody's looking at me, they must be thinking X about me or Y about me. And I stayed in my bed and didn't get up, and it was pretty awful. And it was somebody who asked a very good question of me, which was this. It said, does it really matter what other people think of you? What do you think of yourself? And because I'm the sort of curious person I am, I considered that over a long period of time. And I found myself thinking, actually, other people's opinions of me don't matter, because what I say and what I do and my actions over time won't matter. What matters is how I make them feel. And I think my joy in life is to find my purpose and my why. It took me about a year, and it's been helpful. It's a redemption story, if you like. It's 11 years ago now, and I know who I am. I'm clear in my own terms of what I am and who I am and what my purpose is. And you've got to ask some difficult questions. And it really is, it can be uncomfortable. But I would absolutely wouldn't recommend going through what I went through, but I would recommend the other half of it.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating, isn't it, that a lot of people have to go through something to get to that point of asking those questions to themselves, as opposed to just,
Yeah, I think certainly in the UK there's a reluctance to ask for a coach or help or for a mentor. There is a reluctance to ask questions. You're expected to move along a certain journey and get to each station and be grateful for being there. Now I don't believe in any of that. I believe in you can achieve anything you want, and that power that is your power is something that you need to get hold of, because if you can unleash it, if you can be so powerful as to transform lives, what joy, what love, what power do you have? And it's not about self, it becomes I want to help other people. And how fast can I do it?
That's another big thing that Napoleon Hill spoke about. The day of the go-getter is gone. It's give. What can I give? How can I help you? What can I do for you? Absolutely. So tell me what you think of education now, the education system.
I'm a firm believer, and have been since I was a head actually, that schools aren't broken, but they're fast becoming obsolete. I think there should be hubs where children go, where there's socialisation, where there's music, where there's art, where there's drama, where there's interaction, where there is being a good citizen and having resilience as part of the curriculum, and music and art and drama and all great things. But the other things that we're forced to learn, apart from the bare minimum of being able to read and write and do maths, are becoming largely irrelevant, because when we want to know something, we learn it. Now, most people, when they want to learn something, go to YouTube, or they read a book, or they read about it. And we learn when we bump into things. And we're learning this more from things like gaming and looking at the psychology of gaming, that there is a real sense that they are driven, they are motivated to do well at gaming. They want to move up the next level all the way through. And schools need to adopt this kind of style of learning where we inspire people and we help them find the information they need and how to do it, and help them find their pathway for success in life. But just putting facts inside the brain, what an irrelevance.
So you think everyone should find a way to bump into things?
Well, most of us find passion in life in some area, and it could be that you become passionate about one particular thing. Yet schools have this great way of stopping people being passionate about those things. And I think that's a terrible shame, because at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, passion is what drives us in business and life. So I'm not saying that we abolish schools. I'm saying that they should be take on board, evolve and involve. They should be focused more on empowering. There should be more entertainment, certainly. I think most schools are growing. I think teachers are a gifted bunch of people who have been misused by a system that is fundamentally outdated.
Excellent. So
controversial.
I agree with you 100%. I became a teacher, and the thing that frustrated me the most about teaching was teachers. I just didn't have one teacher that I thought, I'd like to spend time with you, you inspire me. I got in trouble for befriending a lot of the children, because I would be curious. I'd be asking them, what did you do this weekend? What are you learning? What's going on? For you.
The same question you said at the beginning. It's what's exciting you at the moment. Tell me your passion.
Yeah, tell me what's going on. I want to learn from you.
Light that fire within people, and that sort of flame will grow. And I just think there's a culture of producing very a monoculture, really, of similar people. I think it was BT, when they were doing a recruitment drive a while back, were only recruiting people from Oxford and Cambridge with first-class degrees, and that's clearly a nonsense, because you just get people who think like you do. So it's a monoculture. You need diversity of thought. I want mavericks. I want to be surrounded by people who think differently, who challenge, who excite, who inspire. They're the people who change the world. The Steve Jobs I love his term, edit and amplify. The idea that you can take everything and you pare it down and then you amplify what you're good at. I think that's fantastic. The idea that you can you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud, the myangalo thing, that's beautiful. The idea that education could be so much more.
So very powerful. I mean, there are some of these subjects we could talk about for hours.
Days, weeks.
It would be brilliant to have the opportunity to do another podcast with you down the line. But let's just talk about two more things. Let's just talk about the neuroplasticity of the brain. What does that actually mean?
Okay, so most of the brain studies up until about 30, 40 years ago probably were indicating that the brain is fixed. We're born with a certain number of brain cells and they'll die over a period of time, so we're losing brain cells. The great theories of the brain are still evolving, but certainly we now know that there is repair that goes on, and within the brain our neurons can compensate for damage, can compensate for different things, and if we help the brain to do that, that can be part of it. Now there's one chemical, one of my favourite two chemicals in the world is called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is a natural chemical in your brain, which is like if you poured on a plant Miracle-Gro, it would sprout. So your neurons or your brain cells with their sort of tree-like dendrons and dendrites will sprout new ones, new connections. It will make you smarter. How do you get more BDNF? 20 minutes exercise, 20 minutes juggling, 20 minutes non-cognitive stuff. So in schools, again, I would reorganise all schools not to have bells. One, bells are fundamentally useless, but that's outside it. But the idea that you break the double physics on a Friday afternoon, what could be more dull? Sorry, all physics teachers, but it's dull. And you do 20 minutes juggling. How brilliant would that be? Because what it's stimulating is the brain to make new connections, which will make you smarter, which make you cleverer, better memory, whatever you want it to be. So neuroplasticity, the capacity to repair, capacity to change, is part of the ongoing research on memory, certainly, but also on mood and cognition and the way we action our lives. And we are not fixed. And my general belief is that there's a lot of work being done at the moment on things like dementia and Parkinson's and other diseases, which will have very major spin-offs for other people. Because I suspect we're on the 1% of what we know about the brain. We don't really know a great deal. We know some stuff, and it's exciting, but it's like a new dawn, really.
So, one of the things we talk about a lot of Mi365 is making people aware of investing in yourself every day, working on yourself. You mentioned two words, passion and discipline. Why are those things just so important when it comes to developing yourself and being happier, being more fulfilled?
Okay, so discipline is...
Because when you say that, I think about, I'm at school again, I've got to be
disciplined. Yeah, I know you do, and I'm trying to use it in a way that doesn't make you feel guilty and make you want to see my office now. But
now?
Yeah, now. So if you think of discipline as a structured habit that you can do over and over again with repetition, it builds pathways in your brain which will be powerful, and they tend to resonate and have more success. So I say to clients that they'll see a pink car after meeting me, and they'll see a pink car because they're very rare. 0.06% of the population of cars in London are pink, but because I've told them to see a pink car, they will.
Yeah.
If I said to anybody listening, I drove to the station yesterday, what colour is my car? Your brain instinctively wants to know what colour it is. Now, the disciplines of being curious, of doing, for instance, for me, it's changing physiological conditions of the body through breathing. Doing it as a discipline, as a habit, is profound, and it makes real difference. The thing with motivation is it's fleeting, it's situational. It depends on how you are. So whether it's from weight loss to wanting to be the best in your field or writing a book, if it's just based on motivation, it can fade. It can come in and out depending on all sorts of outside stimuli. For discipline, for instance, I can write a 12,000 word ebook in a weekend. Very simple to do, and I can teach anybody to do it. The secret to it is being meticulous in the preparation and discipline. And if you stick to the formula, it works. The other one is passion. And I can't stress this enough. It's something that, and I do a lot of work now in hotels and in the service industries and restaurants, because I see the quality of service as being pretty poor. If you go to my favourite French restaurant, it's called Julien in Paris, and the waiters there have been there since I first went in 1981. The guy with the handlebar moustache is still serving. He's now head waiter. He does it because it's a lifelong pursuit of excellence. He only does excellent work in service. And we're all in service. But he's made it in that field of being a restaurant. Certainly in England, there is a percentage, I won't say all, but there's a great percentage of people who are doing it because there's nothing else to do. And it's It's like the teacher who's not a good teacher. You know it.
Because you feel it.
It's instinctive, and we feel it on lots of ways. We can actually pick it up at how we're heart rhythms, and we're picking up electrically and through our own bodies. But we're reading body language very quickly. We can see somebody with their shoulders down, shrugging when they come to the table, or don't really care about the order, or put the plates down in a sloppy way. All those things can change in a nanosecond. You can change all of it. You can improve service in a second. And that is just tell people how passion works. And if you're passionate about one thing, anything that you do, in fact, everything you do you should be passionate about, you can achieve this wonderful state called excellence, always. And every bit of work that you do from now on should be nothing less than excellent. And if you do that, your life changes.
Yeah. So powerful. When I think of so many things were flashing through my head then when you were...
Really?
Yeah. Well, just about how passionate people are. Everyone's passionate about something.
What are you passionate about? What makes you...
I'm passionate about talking to people like you because I always take something from it. I'm passionate about sharing it with people that are going to listen to this all over the world, and their life will never be the same because of two people that come together that are passionate. Who knows what's going to happen?
That is amazing.
And then if Mastermind Alliance, I know I keep coming back to Think and Grow Rich, but surround yourself with like-minded people and look what will happen.
I write lots of articles. People working together on LinkedIn. I've written 200 in the last 14 months articles all about the brain and how to get more out of life and business and life and discipline and how to do all these things. And one of the last ones was looking at exactly that, the idea that if you surround yourself with people who are negative, who say you can't, which can often be your family, it can be your friends, so don't try that, stay in your job. The three most addictive things in life are carbohydrates, crack cocaine, and the end of month paycheck. It's not there are other things, but the idea of not sitting out on your own or being an entrepreneur because it might be difficult, I find
it's because it is difficult that should excite people to do something. We just got very comfortable.
We have, but again, it's something internal. It goes back to how we're brought up and how we're made to believe that something is possible. As parents, we should be teaching our children to strive for more, not to induce a sense that they can be on X Factor and win it. They might, but it's highly unlikely. But more that they should strive to be the best self they can be.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about that in people. And when I meet people who have settled and become settlers for what they've got, I just want to shake them out of it and say, look, what could you be? What could you be? Ask those better questions.
Well, it's like Maslow.
Yeah.
Maslow said, what you can be, you must be.
Absolutely. And, it goes from all the great people who've inspired anybody else who's saying things like, what is preventing you right now? What barriers do you need to smash? If you could achieve anything you want, what would it be? And if you ask that question, you start to alter the world.
Well, we already have altered the world. I'm fascinated to find out how more people can find out about you. I know you're on a mission. Tell us about your book, A Brief History of Tim. This isn't actually out yet, but it's coming out very soon.
It is.
Your rules for being amazing every day. Your rules on how to be every day. So tell me.
So it's a combination. It's hopefully be out in September. It will be called a book that is part autobiography, part self-help book. So it's personal development, it's a growth thing. So it tells you how to overcome massive difficulties in your life. So it's got my life story in it without naming names and being a kiss and tell, but it certainly is very truthful and honest about things I've done and from being a boy and discovering what I could do, or being on tour with The Clash. Being
on tour with The Clash?
That's
right. How did that happen?
1977, I think it's chapter 1, it's called Punk. I was in Covent Garden, I hitched down and I went to a club, a shady club called Shagarama.
I'm looking at the picture of it now. Shagarama, Covent Garden, London, 1977.
New Year's Day, and I saw The Clash play and I became a punk at that moment. And Joe Strummer said these wonderful words. He says that punk isn't something temporary like a fashion. Punk is an attitude, one where we're saying this: give us some truth.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that quote here.
I love it. I love it because it says we are fed things that are basically untrue, and I fight against that all the time. And I want this book to ask some fundamental questions about self, and certainly I give a recipe, a guide, which people can follow, and they can use it in lots of different ways to change their lives forever. And whatever they're going through, whether they want to be more successful, more business-like, more powerful, or they just want to get over something terrible, or they know somebody who have. And I think, so at the beginning, you can give this book to people because it's so powerful. It will change lives.
Absolutely. And where can people get it from when it comes out?
It will be on sale September. If you go onto LinkedIn and look up Tim Dingle on LinkedIn, all the details will be there. Plus also some simple stuff you can start reading now, how to do it, because I'm going to take it to the global stage, hopefully, and tell people.
You will. This is global, and everything else you do, I'm sure, will be going global. So the best place for people to contact you is on LinkedIn?
Yeah, through LinkedIn. Become a follower or invite me. I always allow people to be my friends on LinkedIn, connected on LinkedIn, because I think connection, the mastermind, what you're talking about, the hive mind, the brilliance of getting great minds in the same room, or even across continents, but connect them together.
Yeah, well, I cannot even begin to tell you how inspiring this has been, and I really appreciate being able to spend this time with you, and I look forward to seeing your progress and hearing from everyone. Guys, if you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you leave a review and you share it with other people. Let's give everyone a chance to hear other people's stories. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and if you want more free inspiration to optimize your life so you can achieve your goals in all the different areas of your life, then visit mi365.me. That's mi365.me, and sign up to 365 days of free coaching with me, Pete Cohen. Thanks for listening, and have an awesome day.